At the end of the 19th century, photography became consolidated as an instrument of social record. In the American West, it captured scenes of everyday life on the frontier, saloons, boarding house rooms. In these spaces, prostitutes agreed to pose, often in work attire, offering the observer visual evidence of their environment and routines. In the 1870s, borax extraction in Death Valley required new logistics. To cross the Great Basin to the railroads, convoys of reinforced wagons were organized, pulled by teams of 20 mules. Each journey, under extreme heat, moved tons of the mineral, consolidating a transport system that enabled regional exploitation. In the image, Black Elk appears on the left. An Oglala Lakota member, he became a prominent figure in two central episodes of American history. In 1876, he fought at Little Bighorn alongside Lakota and Cheyenne in the Great Plains. In 1890, he witnessed the Wounded Knee Massacre by the 7th Cavalry, with hundreds of Lakota killed. Quanah Parker, Comanche leader of the late 19th century, was the son of Cynthia Ann Parker, an Anglo-American captured in childhood. After the Plains conflicts and the pressure on Buffalo, he led his group in the last campaigns and negotiated surrender and adaptation on the reservation, defending the livelihood and autonomy of his people. The photo records two women posing in a composed manner inside the ornamented interior of a brothel in Miles, Montana. They wear period clothing and face the camera, forming the scene. At the time, the town, with about 1,000 residents, was described by a local judge as notorious for moral decay and lack of law and order. The record reveals social tensions. The image shows a cowboy from Caldwell, Kansas, in clothing shaped by his trade and local conditions. The attire suited open climate and terrain. Wide-brimmed hat, scarf, and boots made up the set. Chaps worn over pants protected against branches, thorns, and saddle friction on long cattle-driving journeys. Considered the last photograph of George A. Custer, this image summarizes his public visibility. Throughout his career, he posed for more than 150 pictures. It was taken about 2 months before June 25, 1876, when Custer and part of the 7th Cavalry fell at Little Bighorn in Montana Territory, a decisive episode in the Indian Wars. In the 1850s, the ambrotype, a glass plate image with lower cost and quicker production, began to supplant the daguerreotype, the pioneer of photography. The subject of this specimen is unknown. Through its technique, attire, and pose, the piece illuminates frontier sociability and stands among the most notable portraits of the American Old West. During a pause on the crossing through Greenwood County, Kansas, a group of pioneers prepares an outdoor lunch next to a covered wagon. In the mid-19th century, this vehicle concentrated shelter, supplies, and tools, sustaining long journeys. The stop provided food for the journey, rest for the animals, and preparation for the advance toward new holdings. Joella Irwin stood out in the rodeo circuit of the early 20th century. She performed in the American West. In a context of slow opening to women, she participated in equestrian and arena events such as barrel racing, riding, and roping. Her consistent performance, recorded in regional tournaments, secured her name among pioneers of the sport. Cabinet card from 1884, a format then common in studios, with a photograph taken at the San Carlos Reservation, Arizona. The record is considered the first portrait of Geronimo Chiricahua, leader among the Apache. The image anticipates his public notoriety at the end of the Apache Wars and his later status as an icon of American culture. Jesse James, born in 1847 in Missouri, became one of the most cited criminals of the Old West. A former Confederate guerrilla, he acted with his brother Frank in the James Younger Gang, carrying out bank and train robberies in the Midwest. His career ended in 1882 when he was killed at home by Robert Ford, a member of his own group. Kit Carson became consolidated as a figure of westward expansion in the United States. He acted as a fur trapper, explorer, and mountaineer, as well as a scout in campaigns in the Southwest. He gained prominence in the 1840s by guiding John Pathfinder Fremont on expeditions that mapped routes and consolidated knowledge of the American Western Territories. Photograph dated around 1880 shows figures not yet fully identified. Research indicates that the standing man may be John Kinney, active in crime in New Mexico Territory. In 1875, he gained notoriety by leading a gang of thieves operating in the southern region, becoming involved in robberies and local conflicts. Pearl Hart, born in Canada, gained notoriety in Arizona in 1899 by carrying out, with accomplice Joe Boot, one of the last stagecoach robberies of the period. Captured and brought to trial, she became the subject of wide debate on crime and gender. The repercussion grew when Cosmopolitan magazine popularized her story across the country. Rose Dunn, called Rose of Cimarron, gained notoriety at 15 years old. In 1895, in Ingalls, in what was then Oklahoma Territory, the decisive episode occurred. During a police operation against a gang, she allegedly crossed the shootout to supply ammunition and rescue her fugitive boyfriend, a gesture that fixed her name in the Chronicle of the West, according to period accounts. Texas John Slaughter, a figure of the American West, served as a Texas Ranger in the Civil War, and after the conflict ended, migrated to Arizona, where he established himself as a cattle rancher, setting up a ranch near Douglas. A photograph from 1885 records this stage and serves as evidence of his work and of local economic changes in the context of the U.S.-Mexico border. Olive Oatman, a young woman of the American West, became famous for a life story of captivity and cultural integration. Living among the Mojave in the 19th century, she received a blue tattoo on her chin, applied with cactus ink, a ritual adoption gesture that marked belonging and promised a peaceful passage to the afterlife according to local cosmology. The Texas Rangers were formed as a militia of settlers in 1823 at the initiative of Stephen F. Austin to guard settlements in Texas. They received official recognition in 1835 and after independence and annexation to the U.S., acted as a mobile state force, pursuing bandits, curbing border conflicts, and supporting sheriffs and the army. Recently identified, the photograph expands the understanding of daily life in the Old West by recording a woman possibly dedicated to cattle ranching. The specimen was made public through the work of researcher Mark Lee Gardner, who located it by chance in an antique shop in Missouri, inserting it into the debate on women's roles on the frontier. Tiburcio Vasquez, a Californian born in 1835, became a central figure among Hispano-Californian bandits. Between 1854 and 1874, he committed thefts, robberies, and kidnappings, organizing local gangs. The photo, dated C.1865, consolidated his notoriety, publicized his escapes from the police, and his influence in networks of complicity in California's interior. Figures of the Old West, cowboys played a central role in cattle management and the frontier economy. They often visited studios in small towns for portraits. They posed in work clothes, hats, and with saddles, creating a visual record that legitimized their trade and identity as well as serving family memory. Bill Doolin, leader of a gang specializing in bank and train robberies in Oklahoma Territory, was at the top of the wanted list due to the reward for his capture. After escaping jail in July, his career ended in August 1896. In an ambush in Lawson, he was shot 20 times by a posse under Marshal Heck Thomas. At the funerals of Tom McClory, Frank McClory, and Billy Clanton, the procession displayed the banner, "Murdered in the Streets of Tombstone." The slogan, promoted by allies, referred to the gunfight at the OK Corral on October 26, 1881, and was intended to cement the memory of the deaths as unjust, encouraging mourning and protest in the local community at the time. Kate Rockwell, a popular performer, entertained miners in Alaska in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In saloons and camps, she performed dances and current songs, such as polkas and ballads, becoming a well-known figure. She often wore red chiffon dresses, which highlighted the spectacle in frontier regions. She was widely applauded. A photograph from 1865 shows Wild Bill Hickok, a celebrated figure of the West wearing everyday clothing. Unlike later portraits in which he poses in theatrical costumes, here he appears in functional pieces, simple cuts, and discreet accessories. The record allows observation of his real style of presentation and clothing choices at that time. In 1876, at the height of the great cattle drives, a photograph taken in Dodge City, Kansas, shows Bat Masterson and Wyatt Earp side by side. Young lawmen, they worked to contain the violence linked to saloons, cattle routes, and railroad expansion. The portrait fixed the cooperation that shaped order on the frontier amid disputes over territory and profit.